Welcome back to another Workshop Wednesday. Today's topic is all about getting started. So if you are a beginner with these tools, especially Google Analytics, you're going to love today. We're going to talk about how to answer the primary question, who are my users? Using Google Analytics. Now, if this is your first workshop, welcome. My name is Chris Mercer. I do go by Mercer, and I'm the co-founder here at measurementmarketing.io. And whether you found us through the many podcasts and talks that we give, now virtual summits, lots of virtual summits that we've been on, maybe you've come across some of our other content platforms like Digital Marketer, or CXL Institute, or Social Media Examiner. Maybe you are already a member of measurementmarketing.io. However, you came to this particular workshop. Welcome aboard. Glad to have you back. Our job is to help people like you figure out how to use these tools. And today we're going to talk about Google Analytics so you can know a little bit more about your users, maybe help you out with marketing targeting, things along that particular mindset. Now, we do use the framework. I'm going to remember about this measurement marketing framework because just doing this will help you with your results. You got to plan, which of course you'll use Google Analytics for, especially when you're trying to learn more about the users that are on your site, because you can better plan at that point, specifically with your audience targeting. Then you would build out. Now, it might take a little bit of build, which I'll show you briefly where that is in Google Analytics, so you can actually make sure all this data is being recorded properly. Then there's the reports, which you're going to see today in Google Analytics. And then, of course, you can start to forecast and optimize, so you can start answering the question, is this thing working like it's supposed to, right? You can measure against your forecast for your actual results, and they'll tell you basically what's working and what's not. So that's sort of how the whole framework comes together. With all of these trainings, your goal is just to get one new thing, one new concept, one new idea, one thing heard slightly differently that you can take action on. Take action on that, then come back, rewatch this, and you'll pick up another one thing. That's how you stay from getting overwhelmed, because this is a complicated tool. I get it. I was there. I know exactly how complicated this tool is. So just pick up one new thing, practice it, come back, rewatch this, and you'll pick up another. All right, let's go ahead and get started, shall we? Getting started, answering, who are my users with Google Analytics? Now, we're just going to dive right in, and we're going to show Google Analytics. This is the same thing that you're using, right? So let's take a look at it. Now, when you come into the home screen, this is just the general overview. The reports that are really designed to answer questions are the historic reports, all these reports under here. Now, real time is all about, is this thing working? It's really good for testing. Acquisition is all about where the users are coming from. Behavior is all about what actions the users are taking. And conversions are all about what results those users are actually leaving behind, all those actions left behind goals and e-commerce. That's where it all shows up here. This one, the audience reports, these reports are basically designed to answer the question, okay, tell me about my users. Who are these users? What, demographic details, what are they interested in? What devices are they using? So if you're asking a question around who your user is, what they're using, where they live, what English, what languages they speak, like English or French or whatever, all of it's in here. So let's take a look at it as we go through. Now, quick note, some of this, as I go through mine, you may not see in yours, and I will try to do my best to let you know where that is. Now, I'm going to start with what I think is the useful one. Some of these I don't think are useful, especially this is a getting started workshop, so we're going to keep it at the beginner level. And some of these, again, they're kind of fun to poke around, but I wouldn't get too caught up in them. This one, though, I think is useful. I think it's a really good base level of usefulness. And here's how you use this report. So the demographics really just tells you two things. It's age and gender. And this just splits it up, either just age or just gender. The overview report's really nice because it does both. It's one of the few overview reports that I really like in analytics because it's actually pretty useful. So at a glance, what I'm about to see, and this is important when you go to analytics, you always want to go into this platform with a question that you're trying to answer. Never go into this platform just poking around to see what you can see. It is a surefire way to just get batted around like a cat bats around a mouse or a piece of string. Like, you don't want analytics doing that to you. And the reason that happens is because if you go in unarmed, meaning you go in without a question, it's just going to, start showing you a whole bunch of data. None of it's going to make sense. And then you end up leaving more confused than when you came into it. So what I'm doing here, I'm actually demonstrating how to use this tool by saying, okay, what should my demographics be? What should my age be? What should my gender be? And here's what I expect it should be. I expect that of the users during the time frame, this is going to be the last 7 days, is what this will do by default. You can always change the ranges if you want, but we're going to keep it with the default ranges. So over the last 7 days, I'm thinking, based on what I know of our audience, is I'm roughly 50-50 men, women. Probably a little more men, but not much, maybe 60-40 men, something like that. And then my age group is, let's say, 25 to 45. Somewhere in there is probably my main demographic. So that's what I think my users are. That's who I think I'm targeting. That's who I think I'm writing to. And that's who I think I'm teaching to, right? People just like you. Let's find out if I'm right. So we go to overview, and analytics says, okay, well, here's what I know of your users and everything else. So I definitely see that they skew younger than I initially thought, right? So I see here they skewing 25 to 34, the vast majority of my users. Yeah, I have some 45s, this other crowd, the older crowd, but really it's you youngins that are out there. So thank you. So we've got, everybody coming in a little bit younger than I thought, which is cool. Like, I like it. It's good. It's something I can learn. And I can also go like, okay, what maybe about the older audience? Maybe they're not as likely to be in the freelance business. Maybe not as likely helping clients at this point going on, or maybe, just maybe, they are the owners and operators of the businesses, and we're training the teams, which tend to be a little younger, which also, again, makes sense if you think about it. So I have that sort of my age group. And then I've got my male-female split. Like in this case, 60% male, 40% female. So that's pretty good for us. And I think bodes well for the industry, which is great because I know some industries just have a lot of more male dominant industries and don't have a lot of females coming on board. Measurement marketing is not one of them. We have lots of females on board. So thank you for showing up and learning this stuff because it's amazing. So here we go. This is kind of what our demographics are. This sort of matched what my expectations were. And this one kind of threw me a little bit and said, okay, well, this one's a little younger, predominantly more younger than I thought. So maybe it's because of the teams. Now, what I am not going to do here, because this is getting started, but I want to let you know that you can do, is you could create a segment. I could create a segment and I could say, well, show me certain segments because maybe people who are buying products are older because those are the buyers, and people who are taking courses, actually taking the products and not buying them, but are taking them, they are younger. And so we can build segments for that just to sort of what we call TBV, trust but verify, that my hypothesis would be correct, that I would learn and say, okay, yeah, so the team members, my copy, it should be to the older age group because they're the ones paying for it. But maybe I should change copy for the team members and saying, hey, here's how to get your boss to pay for these programs or something along those lines. So that's just what I can learn about my users with one report. That's all we've done. One report, demographics overview. Now, this is the disclaimer I told you I'd mention earlier. If you click on your demographics overview report and Google Analytics says something like, this is not set up, you have to set this up. It is not that hard to do it, especially now. It will walk you through how to do it. You just have a series of disclosures and stuff to look at. You got to make sure that you're agreeing to all the terms and concepts back there. And then once you do that, once you enable it, then the information flows through. So analytics does not collect this information on its own. It has to be told to do it. You have to allow the permissions to do it and connect the dots. The other question I get is, where does this data come from? And it really depends upon how you're connecting it in. There's a couple of ways to do it. The old school way of doing it is where you allow double-click data to come through. That was kind of the original way of doing this. And all the ad network that Google had out there, they are sort of measuring, user and stuff like that, the demographic information, age and gender. Nothing where you can identify any user. So you can't do that. No, it's not about knowing where an individual user is or anything about an individual user. It's just users in aggregate, right? But you had that information coming in, and there's this new one called Google Signals that's just come out recently over the past few years, and that's really kind of the new kid on the block, and that's essentially doing the same thing just in a different way, where it's Google, it's people logged into their accounts, and so Google knows if they're male, female, or what age group they are, and so Google is sharing some of that data with you. Again, it does not say anything about individuals, nor is that even useful. It doesn't matter if you know about what an individual does. What matters is what most of your users are doing most of the time. That's kind of what we're trying to find here, and this is a perfect report for that. So I can see most of my users during this date range have been this age group and this gender, and then again, it's just asking if that makes sense for me. Another little favorite trick I like using is segmenting by traffic source in here. So is my Facebook traffic the same as my email traffic? Because maybe email is an older demographic. So it's interesting to be able to see that here. Okay, so that's the demographic report. Take some time with that and play around with it because it is deceptive. Just make sure that when you go in there, it's deceptive because it's so simple. But when you go in there, before you click on the report, think to yourself, what is this report going to look like? What do I think this report is going to look like? And then look at the report because that will teach you a lot. Now, the next thing is in the interest reports. Now, Google Analytics, again, the same way that it gets the demographic data is the same way it gets its interest data. And there's two categories I think are the more useful ones, this affinity and in-market. Now, these, I don't know how much time I would suggest you spend with these. I think these almost are kind of the interesting to know things and less useful, but it is interesting and could help if you're looking for ideas of audience targeting. This is kind of how I would use these. So if you're for the affinity categories, what this is a report where Google Analytics is about to tell us, in this case, what other people, so the people that are on the measurementmarketing.io site, what those users also like. Basically, that's it. It's what they have an affinity for. It's what they like. And I guess like categories would be way too much like Facebook, but I digress. So affinity categories. So we're going to click on this, and this is going to show us a report of the different things that our users like. Now I'm going to guess at this point what our users like. I'm going to guess it's technical stuff that they like, mostly technical. They might be technophiles, right? Into technology. Maybe they are looking for jobs, right? Kind of bouncing around looking for jobs, trying to improve their skills. So it could be things like that. Maybe traveling if they're freelancers, though I would imagine, based upon recent world events as of this recording, that maybe traveling is not such a big deal anymore. So let's find out what are the categories that our users at measurementmarketing.io, users like yourself, are interested in. So what the other things that they like. And so here I come back down, I can see, okay, shoppers, value shoppers, makes sense. Okay, they're shopping for stuff. Media and entertainment, did not realize that. So y'all like media and entertainment. So do I. I'm binge watching Netflix all the time, and Hulu, and Amazon Prime, and way too much other stuff. There's our technophile. So we've got technology in place. Travel, business travelers, so traveling around a little bit. Media and entertainment, again, for the win. Music lovers, movie lovers. So good on both counts there. Business professionals, lifestyles and hobbies. Lifestyles and hobbies business professionals is interesting because that's almost like that individual freelancer, the work on the beach type person, maybe is kind of what that is saying. Like it's a lifestyle and a hobby, but I'm a business, right? And then there's the lifestyle hobby shutterbugs. This is photojournalism. So you got people taking lots of pictures. There's, again, explains the travel thing, flying around. Then of course you got food and dining. So green living enthusiasts, didn't realize that would be a thing. And there's 68 others. So I can come through here. And what's nice about this report, a little different, not as simple as what the demographic reports are, but at a pretty quick glance, I can see of the users I have, how many are in these different categories. So I can see that right away. Again, I've got 68 categories to go through here, but then I can kind of get an idea of, okay, how many of those users do I have? What's the engagement rate for those users? Are there certain categories? And this is the only way I would use this report. If my average is 3.6 pages per session, if my average is 14, almost 15 minutes on a session duration, I look at these numbers and say, is there anything that's abnormal here that sticks out? Because that's all I'm looking for. We have a saying here at measurementmarketing.io, the truth is in the trend, the power is in the pattern. And so that's what we're looking for here. So basically my pages per session, I don't see a huge difference between them, to be honest, like not too much of a difference. But session duration, I kind of do. I see that my music lovers spend less time than what the rest of them do by a pretty decent chunk. If you think about it from a percentage standpoint, that's 10 minutes versus 16 minutes. It's pretty good clip that they're missing there. So what are they, 60% of the time roughly? And I see down here, lifestyles, green enthusiasts. So if I'm going from an audience targeting perspective, I'm not necessarily going to target everybody who's listening to Garth Brooks right now. Let's assume that he's out there still and people still love his music. But I'm not necessarily using that as a targeting. Instead, I might target some of these other categories because they have high levels of engagement. Now, the other thing that I can look at, of course, is our results. So if I scroll up to the top here, you see this e-commerce results, but I could flip it over to whatever goal I'm measuring for. Which again, we don't have time to set up now, but rest assured, Google's goals they're made back there for that. And I can see my goal completion rates. Is there something that's there to complete a certain goal? Is there something in there that you saw the e-commerce earlier that may be a sale? And if I go, oh, well, technophiles are buying, so maybe I should target more technophiles. And I can help other platforms like Facebook and Google ads with that because I'm learning more about my users, right? Who these users are, who my users are at measurementmarketing.io. Now, this next one is in market segments, and it is exactly what it sounds like. It is telling you these are the things that not just that they like, because that's more kind of psychographic stuff. In market this is the stuff they are currently looking to buy. So in addition to buying services, hopefully from measurementmarketing.io or training or whatever else, here's other things that they are interested in buying. So I would imagine here, when I click on this report, I'm going to see things like software, business development tools, professional training. That's the sort of thing I would expect from my users. Let's go see if we have any surprises, because that's really where we learn. So here, business services, advertising, marketing makes total sense. Employment, looking for a job. That was interesting. So I didn't see the affinity category looking for a job, but it did show under in market. They are currently in the market for a job, which makes sense, of course, because you're looking to improve your training and maybe get a raise. So you've got that. More business and services under advertising, SEO, SEM, web dev makes total sense. Staffing and recruiting services, interesting. Career consulting services, improving job skills. So, and software, right? Business services. So I see a lot of services, which is exactly right for us. It's the markets that make sense that somebody else is in, because we offer training to help companies learn how to use these tools. And so these are companies out there looking for other things that they need. And of course I have 52 others. And what I would do is the exact same thing. Come through, look at pages per session. Does anything really stand out? Maybe this one a little bit. General business services, not too much though. But does anything stand out on time? So I got 16 minutes. This one kind of does employment a little bit, 12, a little bit here. So I don't know that I would go for this one, but look at this. Business services, enterprise and software collaboration conferencing tools, 6 minutes. So enterprise corporations, right? So these are the large companies like Best Buys, that sort of stuff. They may not find what they need here, but we're not developed for them. We're developed for people like you, people that are just trying to figure out how to use these tools and get answers to some certain questions. We're not providing enterprise level software or support. So it makes sense that they're coming in here, they're seeing a bunch of pages, but they're not sticking through, which means they're seeing those pages faster. And of course I could come through here and then do additional reports to show me what pages they're seeing, things like that. But you get the idea of already how powerful analytics is, because it can teach us about our users. I already know about demographic details. Now I know a lot more about the psychographics, kind of what they're looking for, other things that they like doing, and then what they're in the market for right now, other buying signals that Google sees that they're willing to share with us as marketers to be able to say, okay, here's your users are also into this. And of course I could tie it all the way down to goals and see which type of target is better for achieving a certain goal. Maybe it's becoming a toolbox membership or creating another paid membership, something along those lines. So that's pretty powerful reports right there, demographics and interests. So take a look at those. Again, if you don't see data back there, there will be a message here from Google saying, hey, you just got to hook this stuff up, follow the directions. Make sure you go slow and read everything, but follow the directions and then hook it up. And once you do, you should see the information coming through. Now, let's talk about Geo. So a couple of things in Geo, I mentioned this earlier, where you've got the ability to say, okay, is there a certain language that they're speaking, or do they live in a certain place? I personally expect most people to be speaking English that are on our site. Doesn't mean everybody will, but most will. And you can see EN. So lots of English. So yes, we have that. Why would I want to report like this? Because there could be a trend that I might see of another language coming in that I might want to support. Maybe I see a bunch of different languages back here that the traffic starts really building from those languages. Right now, it is predominantly, this is what I would expect, it's predominantly English users. Of the users I have, most of them are speaking English. So I don't necessarily have a need to set up a translator into the site itself. It's not what the site's designed for. It doesn't necessarily need that. But as the traffic grows, maybe I will one day, and I will see it in my numbers. I'll make the numbers make that decision for me. Same thing when it comes to location. I would expect most are going to be in the US or the English-speaking countries like Australia, Canada, Britain, etc. And so we see that same thing here. So the vast majority of our users from these primary countries that were all in the English end of things. But again, here's my international audience. So thank you very much, international audience. Love having you guys here. So as we come through, we see all these different countries that are logging in, that are representing. So around the world. Now, if I saw a bunch more coming through, maybe at a certain point I have to say, well, we're going to start building out a site for French or German or whatever else, if that starts picking up. But right now I see it and go, okay, this is fine. Incidentally, you can drill down into these. So you can click on this report. Again, I don't know how useful this is necessarily. It is kind of fun. And just see in the US, right? Not a lot of people up here learning about analytics. Nobody in Maine right now cares, but the rest of the country, we're doing pretty good. You will notice that California, Texas, and New York, just because of population, if you're in the US, tend to be the high states. It doesn't necessarily mean anything. Just those states have more people. So they always, you tend to have more viewers from those. And we were based in Austin, Texas. So that's probably why we have people here. So there's our geographic reports. And again, you can use them in the same way. So it's the number of users, how engaged they are from certain areas coming through, and then what the goals are that they achieved. I have a lot more people from Texas achieving goals, a lot more people from California achieving goals, and from New York achieving goals. And then you look at New Jersey, right? Huge percentage in terms of the goals achieved, just lower traffic from New Jersey and Colorado. So it kind of gives you, again, maybe for audience targeting, might be able to set that stuff up for the ad targeting. Next up, let's take a look at, I'm going to skip through some of these because I want to really focus on the useful ones for this particular workshop. I'm going to show you this, not too confused to let you know it's here. That's the only reason. If you've ever wondered about a browser where you hear things about Safari or you hear things about Microsoft Edge or Chrome or whatever else, if you ever wanted to see if there's an issue with a browser, you can come into technology and you can see it. Are people even using Safari? Which are they even using Firefox, whatever? And it shows them all here. So you can see of our traffic Chrome is almost 80% of our traffic. Safari, barely above 10. Firefox, barely at 5. Edge, poor Edge. Microsoft just can't catch a break. So it doesn't have really any market share, barely a percentage. And then there's a bunch of other ones that have come through. Some of these will be mobile browsers and things like that. So this is how you can tell, if you really need to, do you need to radically overhaul your site for 10% of your users? Maybe, maybe not. If you're trying, if something doesn't work on Edge, is it killing business? Probably not. Again, depending upon what you expect. Some of you might be more corporate or business to business oriented, where you have a lot of businesses using Edge and they're not using Chrome, and you would see something different back here. In this case, it's exactly what I would expect. So under technology, browser OS, you start learning about the tech that the users are using. Again, you can use the same thing, number of pages that they're seeing, goals that they're making it through. So you have that as well. Next up, and this is where we're going to end this particular one, is under mobile. I'm going to click on overview because I think this is the more useful report. This is a very easy way to do this. And of course, there's a lot of other reports back here that talk about, kind of help you understand who your users are. But this one is one I want to leave you with because this is the one where it talks about mobile devices. Now, what do I think is going to happen? I think most of us are desktop. And I was right. So here, I've actually already seen this report, so I knew I was right here. But for us, it makes sense that we have the majority of our users desktop. Now, this has been slowly creaking down, but ever so slowly. I do not expect us to switch to mobile-only training anytime soon. I know the trends are there when it comes to mobile, but for our particular topics, we're training Google Analytics and Tag Manager, and chances are you are following along with an instructor and you are doing the work with the workshop there. You're probably on a desktop working out your Tag Manager. You're probably not doing it on a mobile phone. Same thing with analytics. You're probably not doing any major setups on a mobile device. You might be looking at a report on a mobile device, but you're probably not actually setting things up properly, setting up a custom dimension or something like that. So this is what I would expect. We're going to have predominantly desktop, which we do. We have some mobile, which of course we do. And tablet is always pulling up the rear. It's right there with Microsoft Edge, about 1% of the traffic. But tablet really is desktop. Like the way that we think about this is the environment that we're in. So there's either desktop environment, which is for the most part stable. A tablet is kind of like a laptop. You're typically sitting down. You're typically not walking and reading your tablet and swiping your tablet. You don't see that very often. Occasionally you do. Those people walk into walls. But mobile devices, you see it all the time. People walking, using their thumb to get around. They're in Starbucks trying to get a coffee or whatever it is. Highly distracted environments. This is how we look at it. Desktop is more of the stable environment where we know we're having a more focused conversation with an individual. And mobile is the design switches to a more short and sweet, because I know the attention is highly distracted, and then we have seconds of attention, and that's really it. So we don't personally do a lot in our members area. In fact, this report helped us to save a ton of money a few years back when we redesigned our members area. Initially, we had our members design, and one of the conversations was, do we need to go invest in a mobile-friendly design? Like mobile first is what the big thing was back then. So we took a look at this report and said, no, we don't. Because back then, I think it was like 20% was mobile. Now it's 22. So, doing this little thing. And again, it creeps up slowly, but that's just because of the nature of our particular business and how we're training the tools. Our tools are really desktop tools, so we train them on a desktop. You see them on a desktop monitor. That said, of course, when we do the new member site, which we'll be releasing shortly, we'll have even more mobile friendliness to it. So it'll still have that for those that want to learn on mobile. But we still predominantly expect most to be desktop. This fits what we expect. Your site might be totally different because your users are different. And that's what I love about this mobile overview report, is because it shows you at a glance which devices they're using. Now, again, you can dive into these reports. You can use secondary dimensions. You can learn a ton of cool stuff coming through here to figure out even more about your users. But I wanted you to at least have this little tidbit of information so you knew how to answer that particular question. So what was your one thing? Was it the idea that you could actually, before you go into analytics, and hopefully this was it for you, before you go into analytics, you should always go in with a question in mind, right? Always go into Google Analytics armed with a question. And if you do that, then the report all of a sudden has context. It makes more sense when you see it, just like you saw me do when we looked at our demographic reports and I saw the age group kind of surprised me a little bit. And I've seen that report a bunch, but that age group I'm starting to see a spike in younger traffic. That's good to know for me. Was it maybe the reports that exist back there. Just the fact that you could see the affinity report or the in-market report or the mobile report or even the browsers, thinking about how you can use those browsers. Was it the idea of how to actually use the report? So it wasn't just, oh, here's a bunch of information, but here's how you actually can kind of see which of these, in our case, affinity categories or in-market categories might be better to target because they're getting better results or they're being a little bit more engaged than some of the other ones. So you can learn lots of things using your audience reports in Google Analytics. Now, if you are interested at all, if you're not yet a member and interested in picking up some courses, measure.tips/courses will take you there. You'll learn all about the different stuff that we have to offer you, including the all-you-can-eat Win Monthly Pass plan, which is what most people take. Next week's topic, by the way, is a Workshop Wednesday focused on Beyond Basics. So notice the title on this one, Cross-Domain Measurement for Iframes. This is definitely in the weeds. So for those of you who made it through this and went, I kind of already know this stuff, it's kind of beginner stuff, it is. This is a getting started topic. But next week, the topic for Workshop Wednesday rotates to Beyond Basics. You will only get that if you are either a Toolbox member or you subscribe to this YouTube channel. So be sure to subscribe to make sure that you get notified when that is available and you can get access to that. Speaking of the Toolbox, this is what the Toolbox gives you. Of course, Workshop Wednesday, Traffic Tracking Toolkit, Report Card, the Regex series. There's literally over 40 some odd tools that are back there now. They are all completely free. It is our way of giving back to the community. All you need to do is just create your membership. It's completely free to join that. Measure.tips/WW will take you there. So again, measure.tips/WW, and that's where you activate your free Toolbox membership. That'll get you a login where you can go in there and grab the tool and watch the Workshop Wednesdays that come out, these workshops, everything else back there. So love to see you back there. Measure.tips/WW. And with that, we'll go ahead and bring this one to a close. Thanks again for watching, getting started, answering who are my users with Google Analytics. Thanks again for watching this workshop, and we will see you on the next one. Take care.